Behind the soaring success of George Strait, the king of country music, lies a life shaped not just by talent, but by extraordinary resilience. While fans see the glitz, glamour, and record-breaking hits, few know the heart-wrenching story that has defined his family's journey. What devastating event forever altered the Strait family, and how has it shaped the man whose music has touched millions? Today we take a closer look at George Strait's private world, his unwavering love, his unimaginable loss, and the strength of a family that stood united through it all. It all began with a love story that would stand the test of time. George Strait, often called the king of country music, has been married to his wife Norma Strait for over 5 decades. George and Norma first met when they were both attending the same high school. Their connection was strong, but like many young couples, they experienced ups and downs and dated on and off for a few years. Eventually, their love won out, and the couple decided to take a big step together. On December 4th, 1971, George and Norma eloped in Mexico. Their decision to marry came at a time of significant change in their lives. Shortly after their wedding, George enlisted in the United States Army, where he served honorably. During his military service, he was stationed in Hawaii. The early years of their marriage were shaped by the challenges and excitement of this new chapter, but their bond remained strong. Not long after their marriage, George and Norma began their journey as parents. They welcomed their first child, a daughter named Jennifer Lynn Strait, on October 6, 1972. Jennifer brought immense joy to the young couple as they navigated their roles as parents while George pursued his career and military responsibilities. Several years later, their family grew once again with the birth of their son, George Strait Jr., affectionately known as Bubba. Bubba was born in 1981, bringing even more love and happiness to their household. The Strait's family life was built on a foundation of love, faith, and resilience, qualities that would help them through both joyous and difficult times. George and Norma's enduring relationship is often celebrated as a rare example of lasting love in the entertainment industry. They have remained each other's support system throughout the years, weathering the highs and lows of life together. Bubba Strait grew up in a close-knit family with his parents, George and Norma Strait, and his older sister, Jennifer Lynn Strait. Raised in Texas, Bubba experienced a grounded upbringing despite his father's growing fame as the king of country music. His parents prioritized family values and a sense of normalcy, ensuring that their children had a childhood rooted in love, discipline, and humility. From a young age, Bubba displayed a natural curiosity and interest in various activities. Growing up on the family ranch, he developed a love for the outdoors, particularly horseback riding and roping. This passion for ranch life would later become a central part of his identity. Like many boys in Texas, Bubba also showed an interest in sports, particularly team activities that allowed him to bond with peers. His father's music undoubtedly surrounded him, but George and Norma ensured their children were not overwhelmed by the spotlight. Bubba and his sister Jennifer shared a close sibling bond. Despite their age gap of nearly 9 years, the two were said to have a playful and affectionate relationship. Jennifer, being the older sibling, was a source of guidance and support for Bubba during his early years. Their connection was further strengthened by the family's commitment to spending time together, even as George Strait's career demanded frequent travel. The death of Jennifer. On June 25, 1986, tragedy struck George Strait's family when his daughter, Jennifer Lynn Strait, passed away at the young age of 13. Jennifer, the oldest child of George and Norma Strait, was a bright and beloved part of their lives. Her sudden death in a car accident shocked and deeply saddened not only her family, but also the fans who admired George Strait and his music. According to reports from United Press International, the accident happened when Jennifer was riding in a car with friends. The vehicle was speeding and lost control while attempting to make a turn. The car flipped, and Jennifer, who was not wearing a seatbelt, suffered fatal injuries. The loss of Jennifer was heartbreaking for the Strait family and became a defining moment in their lives. At the time, George Strait had already become a rising star in country music, known for his hit songs like Unwound. Despite his growing fame, George was a devoted family man, and his children meant everything to him. Losing Jennifer was a devastating blow, and the pain of her absence was something the family carried with them for the rest of their lives. The loss deeply impacted the Strait family, including young Bubba. Though only a child at the time, Bubba was profoundly affected by the grief and heartbreak of losing his sister. This event influenced his perspective on life and deepened his bond with his parents. In the wake of the accident, George and Norma chose to grieve privately, staying away from the media spotlight as much as possible. After the tragic death of his daughter Jennifer in 1986, George Strait continued to make music and perform, but he made a very personal decision to avoid speaking publicly about his loss. For years, he chose not to give interviews. The pain of losing his daughter was something so deep that George felt he needed to withdraw from the public eye to focus on his family and his own healing process. In those early years following Jennifer's death, George kept his emotions private. He didn't want to talk to reporters or share his feelings with the world. He continued to work, releasing music and performing for his fans, but he did so quietly, without the spotlight on his personal life. His decision to step back from interviews wasn't because he didn't care about his fans, but because the pain of losing Jennifer was so overwhelming that it was too hard to speak about it. As the years passed, George's focus remained on his family, and he continued to be the strong, silent figure he had always been. However, in 2012, George opened up just a little about the impact Jennifer's death had on him. When asked about his life's blessings in an interview with People magazine, he shared a heartfelt thought. "We were blessed to have been able to spend 13 years with our beautiful daughter Jennifer," he said. This was one of the rare moments in which George publicly acknowledged his grief over her death. Despite this, it wasn't until 2017 that George opened up more about his choice to avoid talking about his daughter's passing. In an interview with The New Yorker, he explained his decision to shut himself off from the public in a more personal way. "I just kind of shut down," he said. "I just didn't feel like talking about it, so I quit doing interviews." His words revealed just how deeply affected he had been by Jennifer's death. It wasn't just about the loss of his daughter, it was also about how painful it was to talk about it with anyone, especially the media. For George Strait, the loss of Jennifer was a private sorrow that he carried quietly. He chose not to let it define his public persona, instead focusing on his music and his family. His decision to avoid interviews for so long allowed him to process his grief in a way that worked for him, away from the pressure of constantly having to explain his emotions to the world. Even though he rarely spoke about Jennifer's death, his love for her and the sadness he felt were always present in the quiet, sincere way he carried on with his life and career. The memory of Jennifer Strait. The memory of Jennifer Strait, George Strait's beloved daughter, continues to live on through both his music and charitable efforts. While George has never confirmed that his 1988 #1 hit song Baby Blue was specifically written for Jennifer, many fans and critics believe the song reflects the deep emotional pain and loss George felt after her death. The song tells the story of a young girl with striking blue eyes, and many have interpreted it as a tribute to Jennifer, though George has kept its true meaning private. More directly, George has openly shared that his 2005 song You'll Be There was inspired by the loss of his daughter. The song is about the hope of being reunited with loved ones in the afterlife. "I'm a religious person," George said in an interview with Shreveport Times in 2007. "I honestly believe we will see each other in heaven someday. I wanted to do the song badly." Through this song, George expressed the comforting belief that despite the pain of losing Jennifer, they would one day be reunited in heaven. This song, like many others George has performed, carries deep emotional weight and allows his fans to understand the depth of his love for his daughter and his faith in life after death. In addition to using his music to keep Jennifer's memory alive, George and his family also took action to honor her through charitable work. In 1987, just a year after Jennifer's tragic passing, George started the Jennifer Strait Memorial Foundation. This nonprofit organization was created to help children in need and is primarily funded through private donations from friends, family, and George's fans. The foundation specifically focuses on supporting local children's charities in San Antonio, the Strait family's hometown. It was a way for George to channel his grief into something positive, helping children in a meaningful way and keeping Jennifer's memory alive by giving back to the community. The foundation has continued to do important work, with its funding going toward providing scholarships and resources for children. particularly those who may not have access to these opportunities otherwise. By creating this foundation, George ensured that Jennifer's legacy would live on not just through his music, but also through the lives of children who benefited from the foundation's charitable contributions. Through both his music and charitable efforts, George Strait has created a lasting tribute to his daughter. Jennifer's memory continues to touch the lives of others, reflecting the love and pain George feels even years after her death. Bubba's musical interest. George Strait's musical career continued to thrive and remained successful even as he faced personal hardships, including the loss of his daughter, Jennifer. He kept releasing hit songs and performing for his fans, maintaining his status as the king of country music. Despite the demands of his music career, George was also dedicated to his personal passions, particularly rodeo, a sport he had loved for years. Rodeo was something George had always enjoyed, and it was a passion that he passed on to his son, Bubba Strait. Much like his father, Bubba developed a deep love for the rodeo. He started his competitive rodeo career while attending Texas A&M University, where he gained skills that would lead him to become a roper with the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. Bubba participated in various rodeo events, continuing the family tradition and solidifying his place in the world of rodeo. One notable event he took part in was the 2004 22nd Annual George Strait Team Roping Classic, an event George had personally been involved in for years. The Strait family's love of rodeo is something that has been passed down from generation to generation. George had been running the George Strait Team Roping Classic for 35 seasons, and it became a well-known and loved event in the rodeo community. However, in 2017, after more than 3 decades of hosting the event, George decided to end the annual tradition. Although it was a difficult decision, it marked the end of an era for the Strait family and the rodeo community. George himself had been an active participant in the roping events for a time, but his career as a roper came to an end when he suffered a serious injury. According to The New Yorker, George nearly severed his index finger when it got caught in a wayward loop while roping. The injury was severe enough that George had to stop participating in the sport for his own safety. Despite this, his love for rodeo never wavered, and he continued to support and be involved in the sport in other ways, including through his support of the Team Roping Classic. For George, music and rodeo were more than just hobbies. They were a way of life. The rodeo tradition in the Strait family has remained a powerful bond, connecting George, Bubba, and their community. Through music, family, and rodeo, George Strait's legacy continues to grow, with his son Bubba carrying on the family's love for the sport, while also respecting the values passed down by his father. Over a decade ago, George Strait shared some heartfelt thoughts about his love for rodeo, particularly team roping, in an interview with the Team Roping Journal. George had always loved the sport, and he spoke about it with a lot of pride and passion. He explained that team roping was not just a hobby or an activity for him, it was something deeply meaningful. For George, the most special part of his rodeo career was not his own achievements, but the chance to compete alongside his son, Bubba. George said that his biggest accomplishment in the sport was winning with Bubba. To him, there was no greater feeling than watching his son succeed in the sport they both loved. "It's the greatest feeling in the world to watch my son win a roping, or even to just watch him compete," George said. For a father like George, seeing his child excel was a source of immense pride and joy. But what was really surprising was George's honesty when he said that he was probably even more nervous than Bubba when watching him compete. Even though George had years of experience and success in rodeo, he still felt the same anxiety and excitement as any parent watching their child chase their dreams. The connection between George and Bubba in team roping went beyond just the sport itself. They shared an experience that most fathers and sons can only dream of. "Bubba and I have been fortunate to win a couple of buckles together," George said. In rodeo, winning buckles is a big deal, as they symbolize success in various events. Winning them together was not just a testament to their skill in team roping, but also a beautiful reminder of their strong bond as father and son. To George, winning those buckles with Bubba wasn't just about the recognition or the reward. It was about the shared experience. "That, my friends, is the ultimate," George said, explaining that there was no greater achievement than this. For him, the joy of winning alongside his son was worth more than any personal victory. This story shows how much George values family and the simple yet deeply meaningful moments he shares with his loved ones. While he is known for his legendary career in country music, his love for rodeo, and more importantly, his relationship with his son Bubba, has always been a central part of his life. Watching Bubba compete, winning together, and sharing those experiences brought George a sense of fulfillment that went beyond anything his music career could offer. Bubba Strait. Though Bubba Strait has mostly stayed out of the spotlight and kept a low profile, he has quietly built his own career in the music business, following in the footsteps of his famous father, George Strait. While Bubba may not be as well known as his dad, his involvement in music has been significant, particularly in helping to create songs that have become part of George's albums. One of Bubba's early contributions to music was his voice being featured in the 1992 movie Pure Country, which was a major part of his father's career. As a young boy, Bubba's voice can be heard on the opening song, Heartland. This moment marked the beginning of Bubba's connection to the music world, and it was clear even then that he had a musical talent. While he was still very young, his contribution to the film showed that music ran in the family, and it was just the start of what would become a collaborative journey with his father. As he grew older, Bubba continued to be involved in his father's music, not just as a voice but as a songwriter. He began co-writing songs with George, contributing his own creativity to the music that would go on to be featured on George's albums. Bubba co-wrote 2 songs, Living for the Night and Out of Sight, Out of Mind, which appeared on George's 2009 album Twang. These songs marked a major step for Bubba, as he was not just participating in his father's music, but was helping to shape it with his own ideas and style. Bubba didn't stop there. Over the years, he continued to work with George on more songs, co-writing tracks for his father's next 4 studio albums. In 2011, Bubba worked on Here for a Good Time, contributing to the album's success. Then, in 2013, he co-wrote songs for Love Is Everything, another one of George's popular albums. Bubba was a key part of the creative process for Cold Beer Conversation in 2015 and Honky Tonk Time Machine in 2019 as well, continuing to collaborate with George on some of his most recent music. Stage appearance. In 2014, Bubba Strait had the incredible opportunity to join his father, George Strait, on stage in Arlington, Texas, for a performance during the final stop of George's The Cowboy Rides Away tour. This tour marked the end of George's 2-year farewell tour, which was his last one before retiring from touring. During this special concert, the father-son duo performed Arkansas Dave, a song that Bubba had written on his own. This performance was especially meaningful because it showcased Bubba's growth as a musician and his ability to contribute to the music his father was known for. George's retirement from touring after this show was a major moment in his career, and the event was filmed for CMT's George Strait, The Cowboy Rides Away live concert special, preserving the special memory of that night for fans to enjoy. Beyond the stage, Bubba has also been there for his father at red carpet events, showing his support and standing by George during important moments in his career. For example, in 2007, Bubba attended the Country Music Hall of Fame medallion ceremony with his dad. In 2009, he was with George at the 44th Annual Academy of Country Music Awards, where George was honored as Artist of the Decade. Bubba was also by his father's side at the 50th Annual ASCAP Country Music Awards in Nashville in 2012, continuing to show his support for George as he was recognized for his impact on country music. Bubba's presence at these events demonstrated the close relationship between the two, as well as Bubba's pride in his father's many accomplishments. In 2015, George Strait shared how proud he was of his son Bubba for deciding to take an interest in the music business. George explained that for a long time, Bubba wasn't really focused on music at all. Instead, Bubba's passion was in rodeo. He loved the sport and was fully dedicated to it. That was all Bubba wanted to do for many years. However, things changed over time. Bubba eventually made the decision to step away from rodeo and pursue music. It was a big shift for him, but it showed how passionate he had become about the craft. George was proud of how seriously Bubba took his new passion for music. In fact, it was Bubba's decision to dive into the music world that inspired George to get back into writing songs himself. Bubba really got me back into writing. That's been a great experience for me, to be able to watch him grow and blossom as a songwriter. George told People. George admitted that for a while he hadn't been writing much, but Bubba's enthusiasm sparked his own creativity again. For George, watching Bubba grow as a musician and songwriter was an incredibly rewarding experience. He explained that seeing his son take such pride in his music and develop his skills had been amazing. Bubba wasn't just writing songs, he was also learning to play guitar and getting better at it. George recognized that his son was doing really well and was truly enjoying the music journey he had started. It meant a lot to George to be able to work with Bubba on music at this stage of his career. It wasn't just about father and son collaborating, it was about seeing Bubba blossom into a talented musician, something that George felt blessed to witness. George expressed how much of a blessing it was to share this time with his son, especially since it was a new chapter in their relationship. It was clear that George valued these moments of working together and seeing Bubba thrive in the music business. In these interviews, George spoke not only about his pride in Bubba, but also about how much joy it brought him to see his son following his own path in music. Bubba's growth as a musician had a direct impact on George's own work, sparking a new wave of creativity that led to more music for both of them. Their shared love of music became a bonding experience, one that allowed them to connect in a way that was deeply meaningful for both father and son. In 2024, George Strait received the Willie Nelson Lifetime Achievement Award at the CMA Awards, and it was a moment filled with emotion. As George accepted the prestigious award, he expressed how special it was to have his family there with him, supporting him in the audience. He took a moment to thank his wife, Norma, for her unwavering support throughout their marriage, which had lasted for nearly 53 years at that point. George's recognition of his family's support, including Bubba, showed just how important family is to him, both in his personal life and throughout his career. The love and support from Norma, Bubba, and their family was clearly a cornerstone of George's success, and he was grateful to have them by his side, especially on such an important night in his career. Bubba's involvement in his father's life, whether through performances or attending important events, reflects a strong bond between the two. Marriage to Tamara. Bubba Strait, like his father George, has embraced fatherhood with great joy and love. Bubba and his wife Tamara have built a family of their own and are proud parents to 2 children, George Harvey Strait III and Jillian Louise Strait. Their journey into parenthood started when they got engaged in 2010, a special year for them. They married in December of that same year, marking the beginning of their new life together. Bubba and Tamara's story began a few years earlier in 2005 when they met at a San Antonio Spurs game. At that time, Tamara was one of the Silver Dancers, a group of dancers that performed at the games. Their connection quickly grew, and over the years, their relationship blossomed into a loving marriage. Tamara, who is a realtor, plays an important role in their family life, and together, they have raised their 2 children. Their son, George Harvey Strait III, was born in 2012, and their daughter, Jillian Louise Strait, was born in 2016. Bubba's approach to parenting seems grounded in family values and a desire to provide a strong, supportive environment for his kids to grow up in. While Bubba himself keeps a low profile and does not have a social media presence, Tamara shares moments from their life on Instagram. Through her posts, followers can catch glimpses of the Strait family's joyful moments, including pictures of Bubba and their children, which offer a peek into their family life. Though Bubba has maintained a private lifestyle, the love he has for his children is clear from the way he is seen with them. Being a father is an important part of Bubba's life, and he clearly values his role as a dad, focusing on spending quality time with his children. Just like his father, George Strait, Bubba seems to prioritize family above all else. Whether it's enjoying time with his wife and children or quietly supporting his family's growth, Bubba has embraced the responsibilities and rewards of fatherhood with a calm and steady presence. His children, George, Harvey, and Jillian, are growing up in a household where love and care are top priorities. In many ways, Bubba's approach to parenting mirrors his own upbringing. He had a close relationship with his father, George, and now Bubba is passing down those same values of love, support, and family to his own children. Tamara Strait has shared some heartfelt insights into her marriage with Bubba, emphasizing the effort and love they both put into their relationship. In a candid Instagram post from 2023, she described marriage as the hardest job she's ever had, second only to parenting. Marriage is the hardest job, right before parenting, I have ever had. It's not always easy, Tamara wrote on Instagram in 2023. Tamara acknowledged that it isn't always easy, but expressed her gratitude for having a husband who loves her unconditionally, supports her career as a realtor, and grows in faith alongside her. This openness reflects the strength of their bond and their shared commitment to building a meaningful life together. Family is a central focus for Bubba and Tamara, and this is reflected in the involvement of their children, George Harvey Strait III and Jillian Louise Strait, in memorable family moments. One standout event was in 2019 when Harvey joined his legendary grandfather, George Strait, on stage at the Houston Rodeo show. Together, the pair sang George's song God and Country Music, creating a touching moment that celebrated both family and music. It was a special opportunity for Harvey to share the stage with his grandfather, showing how deeply music runs in the Strait family. The family's shared love for sports was on full display in 2022 when they attended Game 6 of the World Series. Alongside Tamara, Norma, and Jillian, Harvey stood proudly by his grandfather's side as George, dressed in a Houston Astros hat and jersey, made the iconic play ball call. These moments showcase how close-knit and active the Strait family is, with a mix of love for music, sports, and family traditions. As for the children's interests, George Strait shared some insights into his grandchildren during a 2022 interview with Cowboys and Indians. Harvey has explored his creative side by playing the drums and may return to it in the future, but his current passions lie in baseball, hunting, and fishing. Meanwhile, Jillian has shown a spark of musical talent, with her grandfather mentioning that she has a good singing voice. While it's too early to predict if she'll follow in the family's musical footsteps, George is committed to encouraging both Harvey and Jillian in whatever paths they choose to pursue. Through these moments, it's clear that the Strait family cherishes their time together and supports one another's dreams and passions. Bubba Strait, the son of country music legend George Strait, has made a significant impact on modern country music through his songwriting and collaborations. Though he remains largely out of the public spotlight, his contributions as a songwriter have played a key role in defining the sound and storytelling of his father's later works, as well as influencing the broader country music landscape. But while Bubba's story is one of creativity and legacy, another story of a legendary family comes with unimaginable heartbreak. Robert Redford's son, James, tragically passed away at the age of 58, leaving behind a legacy of his own. What caused his untimely death, and how did it profoundly impact the Redford family? Click on the video appearing on the screen right now to uncover the heartbreaking details of James Redford's life and legacy. Don't miss this powerful story of loss, resilience, and the enduring strength of a family navigating grief. Make sure to watch until the end. You won't believe the impact his passing had on his father, the iconic Robert Redford. Don't forget to like this video, share your opinions in the comments below,